I saw a quote here that you might like, and maybe you've mentioned before, from Albert Einstein, who said, "Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind."
Yeah. I think that expresses the precise opposite view of the one that we were disputing earlier. So I think this is wonderful. And of course, I think there's a great deal of truth to it. I think, what can science do without religion? Well, typically science cannot formulate ideals. Right? That's not its purpose. Its purpose is to give a correct scientific description and explanation of the physical universe. So what can't science do? It can't do ideals for you, right? It can't do, moral principles for you. It can't give you an ethical methodology. It can't comment per se on how to believe in God, how to worship God, how to trust in God. These are all things beyond science. Now, I think science can give evidence for God, but once it gives evidence for God, I think science can also give a description of a kind of creator that you would need. You'd need, a creator outside of space and time, which was highly intelligent. And then I think, metaphysics can also give you a unique, unrestricted, act of thinking, which is the constant creator of all else that is. I think you could get to that point with reason, science, philosophy, metaphysics. But I think once you hit that, science can't give you how to worship, how to find your transcendent identity, how to know God, whether God actually is going to grace you in this life or not grace you, redeem your suffering, not redeem your suffering. Does God inspire us? Does He guide us? Does He not inspire us? Does He not guide us? Does God hate us? Does God love us? Right? Science can't comment on it. It's beyond its methodology. It's beyond its empirical methodological reach. It can't comment. So Einstein's correct in a way. Science can give us a just wonderful knowledge. But what are we going to do with all that wonderful knowledge? What's going to be the right or the wrong we do with it? Are we going to act for some transcendent end, or are we just going to be materialists? Can't tell. Does God love us or hate us? Can't tell. What kinds of ideals will we shoot for? Can't tell. What is right or wrong? Can't tell from science, but you can from religion, and you can from the philosophical interpretation of religion, and there is where you have that important complementary step. Now, for Einstein, of course, religion without science, we would put it today, faith without reason, right, could lead you down some pretty blind alleys, right? So we know that there are a lot of people, who have faith, but they don't coordinate it with reason, right? And what they wind up with is kind of let's face it, an anti-scientific view of the world, which they attribute to their religion. Totally unnecessary, but they do. Sometimes people, they have a great deal of faith, but they have no reason whatsoever, and so, they're not looking at the reasonable consequences of their action. As St. Thomas Aquinas would say, right, you have all this faith, but without reason, you don't have prudence. And without prudence, you don't have wisdom. And boy, you can make some big mistakes. You could torture people and think, well, that's what my religion required. I must be okay, Or you could wind up saying, to somebody, well, I'm afraid, I'm just going to have to dunk you under the water until you give up your witchcraft-looking practices. Oops, we killed you. Well, it's part and parcel of what has to happen, right? So you have to have some kind of reason integrated with your faith. Prudence must be an essential part of faith because, of course, when the two of them are together, they liberate each other. As St. Thomas Aquinas implies continuously, the heart liberates the mind. In other words, faith through the heart liberates our minds to see the transcendent, to see the ideals, to see the principles and the morals. But the mind also liberates the heart. The mind helps us to function, to regulate ourselves, to know the proper use of faith versus an extreme use of faith, to know the proper way in which we must view God. Because there's all kinds of, right? You can't just take biblical verses. You got to have some methodology to interpret the biblical
verses from the Quran or from something else. And we're seeing sometimes the impact of exactly what you're talking about, when you're not getting the appropriate balance in there that obviously the Catholic Church is promoting.